Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, you are going to learn Excel's DGET function. The DGET function in Excel is a database function that pulls out a single value from a column in a list or database, but only if the row meets a specific criteria you define. In simple terms, it's like telling Excel, from this structured table, look through the conditions I have set and return the one matching value I need. If there is exactly one record that fits the criteria, the DGET function delivers it, clear and simple. If there are none or more than one match, Excel will let you know with an error, which makes DGET very precise and reliable when working with well-organized data. Let's start with the agenda item as usual. We will start with the DGET definition, then move on to practice DGET using a real-world dataset. Next, we will discuss the advantages of the DGET functions. And finally, we will compare the VLOOKUP function with the DGET function. Let me switch to the definition tab here. As you can see, the DGET function takes three parameters. The first one is database, the second one is field, and the third one is criteria. The database parameter is a range of cells that makes up a list or a database, and it includes the column headers at the top. For example, the database range can be A1 to C10. The next parameter is a field parameter. This is the column you want to extract the data from. You can specify this in three different ways. The column label in quotes, for example, if you want to extract the data for sales column, you specify the sales within double quotes as shown here. The second way you can specify this parameter is by a number representing the column's position in the database. For example, if the sales column is in the second position, mention the number 2 for this parameter. Or the third way you can specify this column is by a cell reference containing the name of the column. The third parameter is the criteria. The criteria parameter is a range that contains the conditions you set. This includes at least one column label matching a column in the database and at least one cell below it for the condition. For example, E2 to E1, where E1 contains the column header region and E2 contains north. We will understand this in more detail when we do the practice session with the DGET function. Let me now switch to the practice sheet. In this sheet, you will notice the data table at the top containing 6 columns. The table shows sales data for each salesperson across multiple regions, products, and quarters. The first column is the ID column. Notice that this is a unique column, which means every row in this column is unique. So none of the values in the rows are repeating. The value starts from 1 and ends at 11, but none of these values are repeating. The second column is the salesperson column. The salesperson column is also a unique column. Then we have columns region, product, and quarter. These are not unique columns. Finally, we have the sales column. We will now write DGET function to retrieve sales values using multiple criteria. Below the data table, you will see few practice ideas. These are basically to retrieve sales values after applying different criteria to the DGET function. Let us start with the first practice idea, which is to get sales by ID using all the three methods. We will start with using column number, then we will use the name of the column, then we will use a cell reference to get the sales by ID. So to the right, I have the criteria table already set up, and the yellow cell is where I'm going to apply the DGET function. So select the cell I3 and type is equal to DGET. Press tab. Now select the database table, which is starting from A1 to F12. Notice that I have selected the table headers as well. Type comma. Now select the field for which you want to retrieve the value. The field is the sales field. We will put the column number for sales field. In this case, the column number for sales is 6. So let me type 6. And finally, I have the criteria. So the criteria is going to be ID, where ID value is equal to 4. So I have selected the cells H2 to H3. This is our criteria. Press enter. As you can see, the DGET function has returned the value 14,000 for sales, where ID is equal to 4. Let us check the value. So ID is 4 here, row number 4, row number 5. For ID 4, the corresponding sales value is 14,000, which is accurate. Now let us try to retrieve the sales value by using the column name. So select the cell I6, type DGET. Now select the database, including the headers once again. Type the field name within double quote. The field name is sales. Now the third parameter is the criteria parameter, where we are going to select the cells H5 to H6, which means get the value for sales where ID is equal to 5. Close the bracket and press enter. So for ID 5, the corresponding sales value is 7,000 from the database, which is accurately returned by the DGET function. Now let us move on to the third variation of DGET. Type is equal to DGET. In the cell, select the database, including the headers. Now, this time we are not going to put either column number or the column name. Instead, we are going to select the cell reference, which is I8. The cell I8 contains the column name. So this is the selection by cell reference. Now the third parameter is criteria, where ID is equal to 6. So select cells H8 to H9, close the bracket, press enter. So for the row where ID is 6, the sales value corresponding to that is 16,000, and we have 16,000 here, which is correct. Let us now move to the second practice idea, which is to get the sales value by the product name. So select the cell I12, type is equal to DGET. Again, select the database. Now the field will be our sales field, which is cell I11. And the criteria is product is laptop, which is cell H11 to H12. Close the bracket and press enter. You will notice that the DGET function has returned an error with hash NUM. And that is because for the product laptop, we have multiple sales values corresponding to that product. So that is the reason DGET is unable to handle the criteria which will return multiple values. So let me change the product laptop to monitor. As you can see, for product monitor, the DGET function has returned the correct value, which is 9,500, and I can verify the value from the database table as well here. Let's now move to the third practice idea, which is to get sales value by salesperson. So select cell I15, type DGET, press tab and select the database table. The field will be sales here. Select the cell I14, and the criteria is salesperson, where the salesperson is equal to Frank, which is H14 to H18. Close the bracket and press enter. The value returned is 16,000. So let us verify the value. For the person Frank, the corresponding sales value is 16,000, which is correct. Now let us move to the next practice idea. In this practice idea, we are going to apply multiple criteria to the DGET function. So the objective is to get sales by region and product. So select the cell J18 and type DGET. Select the database. Type comma and the field is going to be sales, which is J17. Now select the criteria columns, which is region and product. Close the bracket and press enter. Now let us verify the return value. We need to select the region south and product as laptop in the database. Region is south and product is laptop. Yeah, this is the row value and the corresponding sale is 16,000, which is correct. Now let us move to the last practice idea. In this practice idea, we are going to apply multiple DGET functions in order to not only retrieve the sales value, but we will also retrieve the product name and the ID. And the criteria would be quarter and salesperson. So select the cell J21, type is equal to DGET. Select the database. The field would be the ID field, which is J20, and apply the criteria quarter and salesperson. So this criteria is within H20 to I21. Close the bracket, press enter. The value is 1. Let us verify. So the quarter is Q1 and the salesperson is Alice. The quarter is Q1 and salesperson is Alice, and the corresponding ID is 1. Let me now drag the cell and see if that applies the formula for the product and sales column. As we can see, DGET has returned an error value for these two cells. Let us examine and find out what's wrong. As you can see, the DGET value has an incorrect reference to the database. It starts the database from B1 to G12, whereas the database starts from A1 to F12. So we need to correct this reference. Let us go to the first cell and correct the reference here. Now let us convert A1 to F12 as an absolute reference. So select the cell A1 colon F12 and press F4. Now this has converted the reference to an absolute reference. We need to use the absolute reference for other two columns as well. Now J20 is the field name, and we need to keep the field name relative, because when we drag the cell to cover the other fields like products and columns, we want this field to also change to K20 and L20. So we will keep J20 relative, but we need to fix the criteria columns and make them an absolute reference. So select the criteria columns H20 to I21 and press F4 to make it an absolute reference. So when we drag the columns, the criteria cell reference should not change. That is the reason we have made it an absolute reference. Now the cell references have been corrected. Press enter. This time, hold the edge of the cell and drag it to the other two columns. As you can see, for Alice and quarter 1, the ID is 1, the product is a laptop, and sales is 12,000. Let us verify. And that is correct. The product is laptop, the sales value is 12,000, and the ID is 1. You can actually change the value to a different value. Let me switch this to Bob and see if the values change. So Q1 and Bob is the criteria. Bob and Q1 is the criteria, but the output is ID is 12, which is correct. Laptop, the product is laptop, which is correct, and the sales value is 15,000, which is also correct. Now, if I choose something else, for example, if I choose the quarter to be Q3 and salesperson is Bob, the DGET function returns an error value, and that is because we do not have any IDs, products, or sales corresponding to this criteria. This concludes the demonstration of the DGET function using single and multiple criteria. Let us now discuss the advantages of the DGET function. I will switch to the next sheet. One of the big advantages of DGET function is that it can handle multiple criteria across several columns, which you have already seen in the practice session. Secondly, it works directly with Excel's database format, keeping your logic transparent and easy to read. Thirdly, the DGET enforces unique match. That means if more than one row matches the criteria, the function throws error and thereby catches the data integrity issue. Lastly, this function is useful in analyzing structured datasets like sales tables, inventories, etc., where criteria-based extraction matters. We will now move on to the next session and discuss the differences between VLOOKUP and DGET functions. Let me now switch to the next sheet. So here are some of the differences between VLOOKUP and DGET functions. We'll start with the purpose of these two functions. So VLOOKUP is designed to pull data from a vertical lookup table, whereas the DGET function is designed to query a database, including handling of multiple conditions in a criteria table. Next, matching logic. Usually, the VLOOKUP function looks for a single key, for example, sales for ID 101, whereas the DGET function allows filtering by multiple fields. For example, find sales where region is equal to north and product is equal to laptop and quarter is equal to Q2. This type of examples we have already seen in the practice session. The third item is ambiguity tolerance. The VLOOKUP is not very fussy. If multiple rows have the same key, it just grabs the first one it finds and returns the value. Whereas the DGET function is very fussy. If multiple rows fit the criteria, it will refuse and spits the hash num error. The fourth item is the table requirements. VLOOKUP needs the lookup key in the first column, or if you are using index plus match to get around this. Whereas DGET function requires you to set up a little criteria table with headers matching your data set. It won't run without it. And we have seen several examples where we have set up the criteria table. The next item to compare is the field reference. You specify the field by column number, for example, column 5. Whereas in DGET, you specify the field by the name, like sales, which is more robust if you remove the column. The last item to compare is about the error behavior. If there is no match, the VLOOKUP returns hash not applicable value. Whereas if DGET doesn't find the value, or if there is no match, it returns hash value. Or if there are multiple matches, it will return hash num. This concludes the tutorial on DGET function. Please like and subscribe to this channel for more insightful and practical videos on Excel functions and feature. Thank you.